Why you feel what others hide. Psychology Explained.
Have you ever sat in a room full of people, surrounded by the warm, easy current of conversation, and felt like you were listening in an entirely different language? A language not of words, but of the spaces between them. A language of subtle shifts in tone, of fleeting shadows in the eyes, of smiles that don't quite reach their destination. You're sitting there, perhaps at a dinner table just like Sarah, and on the surface, everything is flowing. The river of chatter is pleasant, talking about the weather, about jobs, about the light and airy things that build the bridges of our daily interactions. It's a carefully choreographed dance, and everyone seems to know the steps. They laugh at the right moments, nod in a shared, comfortable rhythm. It is a symphony of the surface, and it is meant to be reassuring. But you hear something else. You hear the music beneath the music. Beneath the surface of this gently flowing river, you sense the powerful, unseen undercurrents. You feel the pull of unspoken anxieties, the cold spots of hidden grief, the deep, slow-moving weight of loneliness. When a friend talks about a promotion, you don't just hear the pride, you hear the frantic whisper of imposter syndrome tugging at his voice, the deep-seated fear that he is not enough. When a family member deflects a question about their relationship with a quick joke, you don't just see the smile, you see the hairline fracture in it. The desperate attempt to steer the conversational boat away from the jagged rocks of truth just below the surface. You feel the silence of the one who says nothing at all. A silence that isn't empty, but is dense and heavy with everything they cannot bring themselves to say. It's a profound, often isolating, perception. It's as if everyone else is content to sail on the sunny, sparkling surface of the river, while you are equipped with a diving bell, perpetually showing you the vast, complex, and sometimes murky world that lies beneath. You see the forgotten shipwrecks of past traumas, the tangled weeds of insecurities, the strange and beautiful creatures of vulnerability that hide in the dark. And you can't turn it off. You can't unsee. You can't unhear. You can't unfeel. This experience, this way of being in the world, can be incredibly lonely. You might look around the room and wonder, am I the only one? Why does no one else seem to notice the tremor, the hesitation, the silent plea? You might even start to question your own reality, wondering if you are simply imagining things, if you are being too sensitive, too dramatic. You have been told that, haven't you? You think too much. You're reading into things. Just relax and have a good time. These words, often meant to be helpful, feel like someone telling you to ignore the fact that your feet are wet. They are asking you to deny a fundamental part of your perception, to pretend the undercurrents you feel so powerfully simply don't exist. So you learn to play along. You nod, you smile, you add your own little tributary to the river of small talk, all the while feeling the immense, silent weight of the deep water below. You become an expert actor in a play where you are the only one who has read the entire script, including the tragic subtext. If this sounds familiar, if this feels like the quiet truth of your own heart, then I want you to know you are not alone, and you are not imagining things. What you are experiencing is a profound form of perception. It has a name, it has a reason, and most importantly, it does not have to be a burden that you carry in silence. There is a way to understand this deep river, to navigate its currents without drowning, and to even find the incredible beauty and strength that lies within its depths. If you feel ready, I invite you to journey together, to explore this inner world. You can join our community of fellow navigators by subscribing to Mind Decode Explained. Together, we can learn the language of the river, not as a source of pain, but as a source of wisdom and true connection. For now, just breathe. Settle into this space. Let's stay here for a while, on the riverbank, and simply watch the water together. Let's begin to understand what it is you truly see. The first and most important thing to understand is that this ability to perceive the hidden river was not something you chose. It was very likely a skill you learned, a skill born out of necessity. Think of the environment you grew up in as your first river. For some, that river was calm, predictable, and clear. The surface of the water accurately reflected the world below. Words matched feelings, actions matched intentions. In such a river, a child learns to trust the surface. They can splash and play and develop a sense of safety, a secure attachment to the world, knowing that what they see is what they get. They don't need to constantly check the depths, because the depths are not threatening. But for many of us, the river of our childhood was not so clear. Perhaps it was turbulent, with sudden, unpredictable rapids of anger or storms of anxiety. Or maybe it was deceptively calm on the surface, but with treacherous, invisible undercurrents of sadness, tension, or disapproval. In an environment like this, a child's survival depends on learning to read the water in a different way. You couldn't trust the surface. The spoken words, "I'm fine," might be the calm surface, but the real information, the real threat or need, was in the undercurrent, the clenched jaw, the tight shoulders, the heavy sigh. And so, you learned. You had to. You became a tiny, hyper-vigilant meteorologist of the emotional atmosphere. Your nervous system tuned itself, like a highly sensitive instrument. To detect the slightest shifts in pressure, the most subtle changes in the current, you learned to feel the temperature of a room the moment you walked in. You learned that a certain kind of silence was not peaceful, but was the heavy calm before a storm. This wasn't a choice. It was an adaptation. It was your brilliant young mind figuring out how to stay safe, how to anticipate needs, how to brace for impact, or how to provide comfort to a caregiver who couldn't ask for it directly. You learned to dive because the surface couldn't be trusted. You learned the language of the deep because the language of the surface was often a lie. This is a core concept in understanding what psychologists call insecure attachment. It's not a judgment. It's simply a description of having learned to navigate a world that didn't feel consistently safe, and your sensitivity is the map you drew to survive it. So now, as an adult, you carry that map with you everywhere. You walk into a dinner party, a business meeting, a coffee shop, and you are unconsciously and automatically scanning the river. While others are admiring the sunlight on the water's surface, you are charting the depth, the temperature, the hidden currents. This is an incredible skill, but it is also utterly exhausting. Because your nervous system doesn't always know the difference between the unpredictable river of your past and the relatively calm river of your present. It's still on high alert, still scanning for threats, still bracing for the rapids. This is why you can leave a perfectly pleasant social gathering and feel completely drained, as if you've just run a marathon. In a way, you have. You've been processing multiple streams of information at once, the spoken and the unspoken, and holding the emotional weight of both. You become an unintentional sponge for the ambient emotions in the room. You absorb the anxiety from one person, the sadness from another, and you carry it home with you, often unsure of which feelings are yours, and which you've simply picked up along the way. Here we encounter the first great thorn, the first painful misconception that we must gently remove. It is the belief that this sensitivity is a flaw, a weakness, a curse. You've been told you're too sensitive, and you've come to believe it means you are somehow broken, that you lack the resilience or the thick skin necessary to make it in this world. But I want to offer you a new perspective, a truth that I hope you will let settle deep within you. This is not a flaw. This is a form of high-definition perception. You are not broken. You are just experiencing the world in more detail. Imagine some people see the world in black and white, and others in standard color. You experience it in 4K Ultra HD, with a full surround sound system. You perceive the subtle hues of emotion, The complex textures of human interaction that others miss entirely. To ask you to be less sensitive is like asking a musician to become deaf to the nuances of a symphony. It is asking you to deny your greatest instrument of perception. The challenge is not to break the instrument, but to learn how to play it. The goal is not to become less sensitive, but to become more skilled at managing the vast amount of information your sensitivity provides. To truly understand this, we can turn to the wisdom of the great psychologist Carl Jung. Jung spoke of the shadow, which are the parts of ourselves that we have repressed or hidden away because they were deemed unacceptable by our family, our society, or ourselves. The shadow contains our fears, our shame, our grief, our unfulfilled desires. Now, imagine this shadow self as the darkest, deepest part of our inner river. It's the murky riverbed where all the things we don't want to look at have settled over time. Because you are so attuned to the depths, you not only sense your own shadow, you are incredibly sensitive to the shadows of others. When Michael speaks of his promotion with that tremor in his voice, you are sensing his shadow, the deep fear of inadequacy that he tries so hard to keep hidden in the dark. When Jennifer's smile tightens, you are feeling the pull of her shadow, the grief or disappointment in her marriage that she cannot speak aloud. Most people spend their lives trying to ignore the existence of the shadow, staying in the brightly lit surface waters, but you can't. You can feel its cold, heavy presence. Jung taught that we cannot become whole until we are willing to turn and face our shadow, to bring its contents into the light of consciousness. In a way, your sensitivity is a constant call to wholeness, for yourself and for others. It is a constant reminder that the surface is not the whole story, that true understanding lies in having the courage to look into the deep. This fear of the deep, this collective agreement to stay on the surface, is something the brilliant researcher Brené Brown has spent her life studying. Her work on vulnerability helps us understand why the river of small talk is so prevalent. The small talk about weather and Netflix and vacations, it's a beautifully constructed boat, designed for one purpose: to keep us safe and dry, to protect us from the terrifying vulnerability of the depths. To truly dive beneath the surface with another person, to speak of our fears, our shame, our real heartbreaks that is to be truly seen. And being seen is a terrifying prospect for most of us. It requires immense courage. So instead, we skim along the surface, laughing and nodding, keeping the conversation light and buoyant, because to stop for even a moment might risk the boat capsizing and plunging us into the cold, unpredictable waters of real emotion and connection. You, with your deep perception, are a threat to this unspoken agreement. Your very presence, your intuitive gaze, feels like it can see through the hull of their carefully constructed boats. It makes people uncomfortable, not because there is anything wrong with you, but because you remind them of the river they are trying so desperately to ignore. You are a mirror to their own depths, and many are not ready to look. And this perception, this knowing, isn't just an intellectual exercise. It isn't just a story you tell yourself. You feel it in your body. This is where the pioneering work of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk becomes so incredibly illuminating. His profound statement, "The body keeps the score," explains so much of your lived experience. You don't just hear the tremor in Michael's voice. You might feel a corresponding tightness in your own chest. You don't just notice Jennifer's fleeting sadness. You might feel a sudden, unexplained wave of melancholy wash over you. Your body is the resonant chamber that picks up on the vibrations others give off. It is a seismograph for the emotional fault lines in a room. This is because our nervous systems are designed to attune to one another, a phenomenon known as neuroception. Your system is simply tuned to a much finer, more sensitive frequency. It is processing the somatic, bodily experience of others. This is not woo-woo or magic. It is biology. It is the body keeping the score of the river's every secret, yours and theirs. This is why self-care for you is not an indulgence. It is a vital, non-negotiable necessity. It is the process of coming back to your own body and clearing out the emotional states that do not belong to you, of recalibrating your instrument back to its own baseline frequency. This brings us to the second great thorn, the second painful misconception that often accompanies this gift of perception. It is the belief that because you can sense the pain, you are responsible for fixing it. You feel the undercurrents of suffering, and you immediately feel an immense pressure to dive in. You become the rescuer, the confidant, the therapist, the emotional caretaker for everyone in your life. You see the shipwreck, and you feel you must salvage it. You see someone struggling in the water, and you jump in after them, often without a life raft for yourself. But this path leads only to burnout, resentment, and the slow erosion of your own self. You cannot be the lifeboat for every single person. You will capsize, and then you are no good to anyone, least of all yourself. I want to offer you a different role, a different metaphor. You are not meant to be a lifeboat, frantically pulling people from the water. You are meant to be a lighthouse. A lighthouse does not travel the sea. It stands firm on its own solid ground. It tends to its own light, keeping it strong and bright. And from that place of stability, it shines its light out into the darkness, illuminating the rocks, revealing the safe passages, and offering a beacon of hope for those lost in the storm. They are still responsible for steering their own ship, but your light makes their journey possible. Your role is not to fix, but to witness. Your gift is not to rescue, but to illuminate. And you can only do that if you are firmly rooted on your own shore. So, how do we do that? How do we move from being a drowning sponge to a grounded lighthouse? This is the great turning point. This is where the exploration of the river becomes the mastery of it. For so long, you may have believed that the goal was to somehow drain the river, to build a dam to stop the emotions, to pave over the depths so you could walk across without getting wet. But the river is life itself. It will never stop flowing. The currents of joy, grief, fear, and love are part of the human experience. The goal was never to stop the river. The goal was to learn how to navigate it. The goal is to build your own vessel. A vessel strong enough, buoyant enough, and steered with enough skill that you can journey on any part of the river without being capsized or swept away by its currents. This vessel is your integrated, resilient self, and it is built piece by piece with intention and practice. The first and most crucial part of your vessel is the hull. The hull is your sense of self, your core identity that is separate from the emotions and experiences of others. For years, you have been so focused on the water outside that you have forgotten the distinction between yourself and the river. Your hull has been porous, letting the water seep in until you feel waterlogged and heavy. Building a strong hull means asking the question, who am I? Separate from what I feel from others. What are my own needs, my own values, my own desires, my own authentic feelings? This process begins with carving out moments of stillness and solitude. It means going into a room by yourself and just feeling what is there. Asking, what is my emotional state right now? Without the influence of anyone else. It might be quiet at first. You may have been listening to others for so long that you've forgotten the sound of your own voice, the flow of your own inner river. Be patient. Keep listening. Journaling can be a powerful act of building your hull, of externalizing your own thoughts and feelings so you can see them, validate them, and claim them as your own. It is drawing a line, a gentle but firm boundary that says, this is me, and that is the river. Next, your vessel needs a rudder and oars. These are your boundaries. Boundaries are not walls you build to keep people out. They are the tools you use to skillfully steer your vessel. For someone with your perception, Boundaries are not optional. They are your primary navigation system. An or can be as simple as the word no. No, I am not available to listen to that right now. I don't have the emotional capacity. No, I cannot attend that event because I know the environment will be overwhelming for me. Notice how terrifying that feels at first. It feels selfish, unkind. That's because you have been conditioned to believe that your worth comes from your ability to dive in and rescue. But a boundary is the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for others. It prevents the resentment that builds when you give from an empty place. An or is also about choosing your course. You do not have to sail into every storm. You can see a turbulent patch of water ahead, a conversation that is turning into a whirlpool of negativity, a person who consistently drains your energy, and you can use your oars to steer around it. This is not avoidance, it is skillful navigation. You are the captain of your ship. You get to decide which waters you enter and for how long. And finally, every vessel needs an anchor. Your anchor is self-compassion. The river of life will always have storms. There will be days when a rogue wave of emotion, yours or someone else's, crashes over the side and leaves you feeling swamped and scared. There will be times when you get caught in a current and feel yourself being pulled in a direction you don't want to go. In these moments, you drop the anchor. The anchor of self-compassion is the practice of speaking to yourself with the same kindness and understanding you so freely give to others. Instead of saying, "Why am I so sensitive? I shouldn't be feeling this way," the anchor says, "Of course this is overwhelming. I am taking on a lot of information. It is okay to feel this way. Let me rest here for a moment until the storm passes." The anchor is the permission to be imperfectly human. Unrest, it is the practice of holding your own hand, of offering yourself a moment of grace. It is what stops you from being swept away into the vast, open ocean of despair. It is the tether that keeps you connected to your own solid ground, to the truth of your own worthiness, even when the waters are raging. With a strong hull, skillful oars, and a heavy anchor, your relationship with the river begins to change. You are no longer a victim of its currents, but a seasoned navigator of its mysteries. Your perception is no longer a curse that drowns you, but a superpower that guides you. You can stand on the deck of your vessel and appreciate the entire ecosystem of the river. You can admire the beautiful, sunlit surface for what it is, a place for light connection and easy joy. You can see a friend's boat heading for the rocks of their shadow self, and instead of diving in, you can call out a warning, shining your lighthouse beam on the danger, and trust them to steer their own vessel. You also learn to recognize other deep-water navigators. You can see the sturdiness of their vessels, the skill with which they handle their oars. These are the people with whom you can choose to drop anchor for a while. These are the people with whom it is safe to dive. You can go into the depths together, exploring the shipwrecks and the hidden treasures, knowing you both have the skills to resurface, stronger and more connected than before. True, deep intimacy is not about rescuing. It is about two skilled navigators choosing to explore the river together. So, how do you begin this journey of building your vessel today, right now? You begin not in the water, but on the shore. Find a quiet moment. Close your eyes. And instead of focusing on the river of emotion around you, bring your attention to the solid ground beneath you. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. This is your shore. This is your sovereign ground. It is real, it is solid, and it is yours. It is the place you can always return to when the river becomes too much. Practice this. Practice returning to the shore, to the physical sensations of your own body, multiple times a day. This is the first step in building your hull, in remembering where the river ends and you begin. From this grounded place, you can begin to practice observing the river without immediately jumping in. You can sit on the bank and just watch the currents of emotion, in yourself and in others, with a gentle curiosity. There is sadness flowing by. There is a current of anxiety. You don't have to do anything about it. You can just watch it, name it, and let it flow on by. This is mindfulness. This is the beginning of becoming the lighthouse. Remember, you have spent a lifetime developing this extraordinary perceptual skill. Learning to navigate with it, instead of being overwhelmed by it, will also take time. Be gentle with yourself. There will be days you forget your oars, days you forget to drop anchor. That's okay. Every time you find yourself back on the shore, you are strengthening your practice. Every time you choose to say a small no, you are reinforcing your hull. Every time you offer yourself a moment of kindness instead of criticism, you are securing your anchor. Your depth is not a mistake. It is not a burden to be discarded. It is a vast, beautiful, and sacred world that you have been given the unique ability to perceive. It is the source of the greatest empathy, the most profound creativity, and the most authentic connection. The world needs its surface sailors, but it desperately needs its deep-water navigators too. It needs the lighthouses. It needs you. So take a deep breath. Feel the solid ground beneath you. The river is flowing, and your vessel is waiting. Welcome home.